Hello, welcome to QUT News.
Hello.
Queensland drivers be warned. Police are getting even tougher on speeding with new cameras at high-risk intersections statewide.
The introduction of specialised speed cameras comes after a spike in vehicle crashes around the inner suburbs.
As of today, we'll be activating a series of these sites around the state. So you will see them in places around southeast Queensland, you'll see them in places like Ipswich and Gympie.
The Queensland government says many drivers think they can get away with speeding through the amber lights in the hope of not getting stuck on red.
Some sites we see very high rates of non-compliance with either the speed requirements or the red traffic control signal at those locations.
The red light speed camera will detect motorists who disobey the red traffic light and those who speed through the intersection. The new combined devices will reduce travel speeds at high-risk intersections and operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll be at multiple locations including Old Logan Road, Mount Cravat Capalaba Road and the Bruce Highway. Police say the new red light speed cameras are not revenue raisers and all motorists have to do is stick to the speed limit. The Queensland government wants drivers to know where these cameras are, so there are no surprises. Cynthia Taylor, QUT News.
Despite the blitz on speeding, Brisbane has some of the slowest traffic in the country. The city's busiest roads are clogging up more in peak hour, and there's no easy fix.
The RACQ's latest travel time report shows congestion in Brisbane is much worse. Average speeds down 20% from 12 months ago. The report revealed our 6 worst offenders, and at the top of the list, Stanley Street, Woolloongabba.
Just outrageous to think that, you could nearly walk faster than what some of these roads are going.
Average speed here in peak hour, just 16 kilometres an hour. Tied for second slow coach place, Corro Drive and Kelvin Grove Road at 20 k's an hour. The RACQ report found the average speed on Brisbane's 38 key roads dropped from 42 to just 35 kilometres per hour over the last year. They say Brisbane's roads need to be upgraded urgently to handle its booming population. The Lord Mayor says travel times will improve when major upgrades like Kingsford Smith Drive are completed. But opposition transport spokesman Jared Cassidy says more investment is needed.
So here in Brisbane, our bus network is stuck on these same congested roads that cars are. So what we need is more dedicated, separated public transport infrastructure like busways, like new rail lines.
People really need to have these quicker travel times, and part of that is going to be road investment. That's what we need to see, but also investment in public transport and active transport.
Liam Clarkson, QUT News.
The latest news poll shows the federal government is still behind Labor, but the new Prime Minister has boosted its chances at the next election. The coalition's primary vote has risen 2 points and Labor has dropped 3 points.
It's good news for the Liberal Party, but not enough to leave them in power if an election was held now. Labor is still leading on 54% on a two-party preferred basis. Nevertheless, despite his controversial rise as Prime Minister, the poll shows Scott Morrison's personal vote is well ahead of Bill Shorten. But Labor attacked the coalition anyway.
This is a party that is consumed by itself, by its own self-interest, its own focus on the next election.
Former Minister, now backbencher Julie Bishop, has also been critical, but of the whole Parliament. She says Australia is seen as the world coup capital and believes the instability has turned the country into an international laughingstock.
There's far too much throwing of insults and vicious behaviour, name-calling and the like, and the public see that as no better than school children, in fact, not as well behaved as school children.
If current trends continue, the coalition is set to lose more than a dozen seats in the next election. Dania Odgaard, QUT News.
A man has died in a yachting accident off Sydney's Kurnell. Emergency services were alerted after a woman on the vessel swam to shore.
The young woman raised the alarm around 5 this morning after the yacht she was on capsized in hazardous seas off Sydney. Rescuers located the elderly man's body floating in the water near the CC Ryder at about 5:50 a.m. near Wanda Beach. He was winched to shore but was unable to be revived. The man in his mid-70s had only purchased the boat 4 months ago. It is unknown if the pair on board were wearing life jackets. The woman was treated on the scene before being taken to Sutherland Hospital for observation.
Initial assessment was that they were just treating her for exposure and hypothermia. It's very cold, and then transported stable for further monitoring.
Inquiries are continuing into what caused the boat to capsize. Bridget O'Brien, QUT News.
Investigating authorities have blamed the pilot for the crash of a charter flight at Essendon last year, in which he and 4 tourists died. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau released a final report into the February 21 crash. It says the pilot failed to notice the position of the craft's rudder trim, and that was the major cause of the crash just after takeoff.
The position of the rudder trim in the full left nose setting resulted in a loss of directional control, as well as having a significant impact on the aircraft's ability to gain altitude.
The report also says the crash could have been prevented with a pre-takeoff checklist.
Australian filmmaker James Ricketson is home after spending more than a year in a Cambodian prison. He was pardoned just weeks after a trial judge handed down a 6-year sentence for alleged espionage.
He was found guilty of compromising Cambodia's national defence after flying a drone over an opposition rally in June of last year. But last week, James Ricketson received an official royal pardon for the spying conviction that brought him a 6-year prison term. The filmmaker is happy to be back home in Sydney, but says he will be returning to Cambodia at some stage.
I've spent some time by myself and some time with my family, but yeah, I'll be going back.
He's so happy and so happy to be back, and so grateful to have his freedom.
After 15 months in a Phnom Penh prison, Mr. Ricketson is longing for the simple things and most looking forward to an ocean swim. Kendall Bailey, QUT News.
A 4th tiger shark has been killed by authorities following 2 attacks off the Whitsundays. The 3.7 metre long shark was euthanized by Fisheries Queensland after becoming caught in drumlines. Experts are unable to confirm whether the culled sharks were responsible for the maulings of Tasmanian tourist Justine Barwick and Melbourne schoolgirl Hannah Paps.
The Queensland Children's Hospital is drastically overhauling security after a man was caught posing as a doctor for over 6 months. Nicholas Brett Delaney was fined for faking credentials to gain access to the building. He interacted with volunteers and friends but did not attempt to treat patients. The state government has replaced almost 640 security cameras and has cracked down on swipe card access.
Brisbane's most exclusive restaurants are coming together for a good cause. 5 venues are uniting for one night to fight hunger.
This is the 3rd year for the One Night in Havana fundraiser. It gives patrons the chance to sample several different cuisines. In return, profits from the night go to Queensland's largest food relief organisation, Food Bank.
It's a fantastic event. It's well liked by all the people who attend. It's a great fun night and the food's fabulous. French champagne, fantastic cocktails, what's not to like?
The participating chefs want to raise awareness that hunger is widespread.
Food is not about sophistication. Food is something that we have to do every day, 3 times a day. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that they're not able to do these things.
To bring that message home, the event, on World Food Day, will it be at Food Bank's warehouse and use the fresh produce housed there.
When you've seen what's in the warehouse and how far-reaching their influence is, I really love the idea of more people knowing about what they do.
Food Bank helps over 150,000 Queenslanders a month, and tickets to the event cost $150, with all proceeds going directly to the charity. Alex Brewster, QT News.
Looking again at our main story, Queensland Police moved to cut the road toll with new speed cameras.
And still to come, the Pope warns against a rebirth of anti-Semitism. Pope Francis has started his 4-day tour to the Baltic states. The trip is to pay tribute to those who fought for freedom and commemorate those who were killed for their faith.
More than 100,000 people greeted the Pope for his open-air Mass in Kaunas yesterday. Many of the worshippers attending the Mass had travelled from across Europe to be at the Mass in Lithuania. Pope Francis then made a stop to silently pray at the memorial of the victims of the Vilnius ghetto. Both survivors and victims were present during the prayer.
A relative of one of the survivors, Mickey Cantor, says the Pope's visit is good for the population and the Jewish people.
It can symbolize, more understanding and more opening to each other.
One of the ghetto survivors, Vania Brankovkia, was also there. She says it's a sign of Francis's support for survivors against Holocaust deniers. Sunday also marked the 75th anniversary of more than 200,000 Lithuanian Jews who were killed at the ghetto by Nazis during World War II. The Pope is calling for the new generation to be taught the horrors of the Holocaust and for society to be vigilant to the resurgence of anti-Semitism. Isabella Lesna, QUT News.
Britain's Prime Minister says the European Union must provide an alternative if it's not happy with her Brexit proposals, or there'll be no deal. But opponents now want a new referendum on the issue.
Anti-Brexit protesters marched through Liverpool as the Labour Party met for its annual conference. They're calling for a new referendum on Britain's exit from the EU. Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn has resisted calls to back a second referendum. But if Prime Minister Theresa May can't secure a Brexit deal, Corbyn says he'd favour a snap election. Corbyn says he's bound by the democracy of the Labour Party and, if necessary, will back a party decision to support a new referendum. EU leaders said at a summit in Austria they'd push for a Brexit deal next month. But they've rejected the British PM's Chequers proposal to leave the EU. Theresa May insists no deal is better than a bad deal. She's now set to meet with senior cabinet members in an attempt to save her rejected plan. The UK is due to leave the EU by March next year. Missy Drage, QUT News.
A ship that has been rescuing refugees off the Libyan coast will no longer operate. Its registration has been revoked as Italy cracks down on the migrant crossings.
These scenes off the coast of Libya are all too familiar. Migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean into Italy.
Just to confirm the breakdown, we have 16 aboard, 1 full man and 2 women.
These 58 survivors were found on a wooden boat in international waters yesterday and taken onto search and rescue vessel the Aquarius II. But this will be its last rescue, unless it finds a new flag to sail under. The Italian government believes the ship is acting like a Mediterranean taxi service to migrants. The charity working on the vessel says Italy is condemning hundreds of men, women and children who are desperate to reach safety to a watery grave. The UN says more than 1,600 people have died this year trying to cross the Mediterranean. Smugglers' boats from Libya have sharply declined this year after Italian authorities began cracking down on rescue boats. Dania Odgaard, QUT News.
A survivor has been found inside an overturned ferry in Tanzania 2 days after it capsized. The man was carried to hospital after he was discovered in an air pocket near the engine of the overturned vessel. More than 200 people died when the ferry capsized on Lake Victoria last week. Rescuers say they don't expect to find any other survivors.
Dozens of kites have taken flight above a field in Berlin for a colourful festival. They were flying dragons, octopus and even pigs, proving at least in Germany, pigs really do fly. Storybook favourite Snow White and her 7 dwarfs also went for a twirl. The festival attracts kite handlers from across Europe.
The first keg has been tapped as the 185th Oktoberfest kicked off in Munich. Beer is flowing and spirits are high for the world's most celebrated beer festival.
Bavarians turned out in their finest for the annual Oktoberfest costume parade. As is custom, men donned their lederhosen, either short or long leather pants, teamed with a checkered shirt, woolly socks and hat. The women wore a dirndl, corseted dresses, with a lace-up front and apron. But the real star of the show is the beer, which this year is more expensive, patrons paying up to €11, that's about 13 Australian dollars. Organisers say it's to cover extra security amid concerns of a possible terrorist attack. But that hasn't deterred patrons from attending and relishing what's on offer, including traditional pork knuckles. Oktoberfest started as a horse race to celebrate the wedding of Bavaria's crown prince. Now, up to 6 million people are expected to visit Europe's biggest beer festival. Bridget O'Brien, QUT News.
It's that time of year again. Milan has opened its arms for its annual Fashion Fest. The hottest designs and celebrities have descended on the Italian city.
They're the biggest names in the industry: Gigi Hadid, Kendall Jenner, and Bella Hadid, the genetically blessed trio enchanted in Missoni's Dreamy Night themed show. They're just some of the big names making their mark on Milan. Others include the late Princess Diana's niece, Lady Kitty Spencer, who walked for Dolce & Gabbana, and Isabella Rossellini with her proud family in tow. The Italian fashion house is honouring women everywhere by reintroducing plus-sized models to the catwalk, American Ashley Graham leading the charge. But who could forget the very reason for the celebration, the designs themselves? Armani wowed audiences with the Celestial style range. The festival runs all week when style lovers must bid arrivederci to Milan and say bonjour to Paris, the culmination of this season's shows. Kendall Bailey, QUT News.
Prince Harry's wife, Meghan Markle, has a secret and now we know it. She hid a tribute to her new husband in her wedding veil.
In an upcoming HBO documentary, Queen of the World, Meghan Markle reveals her secret tribute to her now husband, Prince Harry. It was hidden within her royal wedding outfit. The Duchess of Sussex embraced the something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue wedding tradition. She included a sentimental piece of her early relationship.
Somewhere in here there's a piece of, did you see it, the piece of blue fabric that's stitched inside?
No.
It was my something blue. It's fabric from my...
I hope it's still in there.
Yes,
we'll have to
sure
look
is.
at that.
It's fabric from the dress that I wore on our first date.
Her 16-foot Givenchy wedding veil also represented the 53 countries of the Commonwealth, with an embroidered flower for each one.
It was important for me, especially now being a part of the royal family, to have all 53 of the Commonwealth countries incorporated, and I knew that it would be a fun surprise as well for my now husband, who didn't know.
The Queen of the World documentary will premiere on Monday, October 1st. Rebecca Durant, QUT News.
In sport, a wounded Cooper Cronk admits his chances of playing in Sunday's grand final are slim. And Billy Slater faces the same predicament over a shoulder charge.
He played through the pain after sustaining a shoulder injury against the Rabbitohs, but Cooper Cronk faces an uphill battle to back up on Sunday.
Don't know what my realistic chances are, but look, I'm a long shot. That's not lying. Pain is what it is. You make it out to be as much as you want it to be.
As Cronk races against the clock, Billy Slater faces a nervous wait to see if his suspension will be overturned. The brother of James Ackerman, a Sunshine Coast footballer killed by a fatal shoulder charge, weighing into the debate.
I have no hate towards Billy Slater or the Melbourne Storm. My hate, and my family's hate, is for the shoulder charge.
He's backed off the map in betting to win the Brownlow medal, but Tom Mitchell is expecting tonight's award to be more than a one-horse race.
You know, I don't really have any expectations going in. I just want to go and enjoy the night with 5 of my teammates.
Meanwhile, the West Coast Eagles held their open training session this morning ahead of the grand final at Subiaco Oval. Australia's cricketers are sweating it out in the arid desert heat, coach Justin Langer pushing his squad to perform in tough conditions ahead of their series against Pakistan.
We've got to, find a way to survive here in the subcontinent conditions, but also find a way to score runs as well.
The first test begins on the 7th of October in Dubai. Naveen Razik, QUT News.
The weather details are next with Cayla Marchant.
And one of Queensland's most colourful and legendary journalists writes about his life with animals in danger.
Welcome back. It was another pleasant start to the week in Brisbane, and it looks like temps will be staying in the mid-20s throughout the week. We'll have those forecasts in just a moment. First though, let's have a look at what's happening today. A few showers sweeping across the southeast in the early afternoon, tops of 26 in Brisbane, 24 on the coasts. Looking across the country tomorrow, we've got a bit of cloud in Sydney with mostly sunny skies in Melbourne. A very frosty morning expected in Canberra, with temperatures dropping below 0 before warming up to 17 in the day. Cloudy conditions in Perth and of course scorching temps in Darwin, topping out at 35 degrees. Taking a look around the Sunshine State, we're expecting possible showers in Cairns, a shower or two also expected in Rocky and the Wide Bay. Out west, the mercury will be hitting 33 degrees in Mount Isa. Down through Moreton Bay, we're expecting southeasterly winds around 15 to 20 knots, with seas to about 1 metre. The sun will rise at 5:34 and set at 5:45. The cool conditions are set to continue on the coast, tops of 20 on the Gold Coast. The Sunshine Coast a fraction warmer at 22 degrees. Finally, a cooler day tomorrow in Brisbane, with possible showers expected in the early morning. But conditions will be clearing up over the week, maximums of 25 degrees expected on Thursday. That's the latest on the weather. Goodbye for now.
Finally tonight, one of Queensland's most colourful characters, a journalist and animal welfare activist, is telling his life story no holds barred. Michael Beattie has detailed his journey from English theatre to daring TV reporter, including his work saving animals.
Friends say Michael is one of a kind.
I guess I've come to know a truly remarkable person, smart, gorgeous, witty, with an inner strength and almost saint-like qualities that are not of this earth.
Laughter has certainly been a keystone of Michael's journey as a reporter, which he says forms the backbone of his book.
Because it was all meant to be the sillier working stuff rather than the purely personal stuff.
He's been writing for most of his life and has plenty of stories to tell. Like why he did a piece to camera sitting on a crocodile or have a piece of chalk shot out of his mouth.
There have been some pretty stupid things. I was told I had 9 lives. I reckon I've used about 5 of them.
And there's a secret to being a master storyteller.
Those who know Michael say one of his greatest strengths as a journalist and in animal welfare has always been his ability to relate to the common man and woman and what interests them.
It's not just people. Michael has a deep affection for animals, which is why $1 from every paperback sale goes to RSPCA Queensland. Off the Beattie track is in bookstores next month. Isla Stanich, QUT News.
That brings you up to date with QUT News. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.